One of the biggest recruiting battles in all of high school football, certainly one where some of the top colleges in the nation are all after one of the most coveted, one of the top offensive line prospects there is. Ty Haywood out of Denton Ryan High School in Denton, Texas, where I'm currently sitting. Gentlemen, he is the number 11 player in the nation, the number 2 offensive tackle in the nation, and the number 4 in Texas. He stands 6'5", 285 pounds, and all of this comes your way by way of the 24/7 Sports Composite. If we're talking about Ty Haywood, I think there's 2 teams we focus in on. That's Oklahoma, who has the pre-existing relationship with him, the long-standing relationship, and Bill Bedenbaugh. Bill Bedenbaugh being one of, if not the best offensive line coach in the nation. I have let it be known I think he's the number 1 offensive line coach in the nation. If you disagree, I don't know how in the world you would put him outside the top 5. I just don't, right? Like, that guy is so good. You look at the guys he sends to the NFL, you look at their contracts, it happens time after time after time. But then there's Bama, who has been creeping into this battle. And what's interesting, gentlemen, is that Preston PG, one of the friends of the show, was in here earlier watching, texted me a few months ago and said, hey, this is a little scary because Bama's doing Bama things behind the scenes. Bama is really starting to get some ground made up on these offensive linemen, and they're turning heads, and it's all happening behind the scenes. Well, now we have seen, per some of the national recruiting guys, I believe Steve Wiltfong was one of them, is talking about, hey, Bama's catching up. Bama's making up ground when it comes to Ty Haywood, but what is going to prevail? How is this going to work? Coach Cap, great offensive line coach, shares a lot of the same principalities as a Bill Bedenbaugh. And I love the blocking scheme that Kalen DeBoer employs within his offense. I don't know that you're going to see a team pin and pull as much as Kalen DeBoer offense's pin and pull. You're going to have your offensive linemen in space making plays. This is going to be a heavyweight battle for one of the top prospects in the nation. Jason, resident Oklahoma fan, talk to me about this battle. What are you thinking?
I would like to be more sure that he was going to Oklahoma, but the relationships, we talked about it a little earlier about how important it is in recruiting, even in the NIL era. And I think that Oklahoma's done a very good job there. He goes to, obviously a school down in Denton. There's other Sooners on the program that are helping with that. He's talked a lot about his relationship with Coach Bedenbaugh. He's talked a lot about his relationship with Coach Venables. I think they have a good shot at this. What I would also say, though, is that you've got a coach and a program, that came from a year ago having the Joe Moore offensive line, at Washington. So this isn't, and it's freaking Alabama. It is what it is. You have to expect that this is going to be a fight down to the end. I'm looking at his official visits. Obviously, he's there right now camping at Alabama. So that's a big deal. But again, I think that it comes down to what happens at the end of this. I think obviously, NIL is going to have a piece of it, all that kind of stuff. But I don't think that either one of these programs are going to let it be about the money. So what does it become about? It becomes about the relationship. So, not knowing a ton about Coach DeBoer and his program, my guess is that he does pretty well with relationships because he was at Washington. You're not paying out the way that some of these other programs will. Again, I think when you look at the track record for Coach Bedenbaugh, he is the best offensive line coach in the country. He's got 11 offensive tackles in the NFL playing today, right now. 11. He's back-to-back years with an offensive lineman going in the first round. The proof is in the pudding. Now, he hasn't recruited 5 stars great at Oklahoma, but I don't know how I think that he identifies the right guys anyway. So it is what it is. And look, I like Oklahoma's chances, but I really wish it was somebody else that they were going against than Bama, because that's the toughest program to recruit against.
Well, before I pass it to Coach Sean, I think I echo those. I wish it was someone else Bama was trying to lift him away from other than Coach Bill Bedenbaugh in Oklahoma. And ladies and gentlemen, Oklahoma under Brent Venables has maintained top 10 recruiting classes again and again and again, and they look to be barreling towards yet another top 10 recruiting class. Brent Venables can recruit his tail off. Coach Sean, talk to me about Ty Haywood.
First of all, shout out to Marquita, my neighbor, Moon Rocker, Antoine, Kimberly, Coach Smook himself, who fed him his face last night and didn't call me. Shout out to Janet, shout out to Lynn, and shout out to Coach Carl. Shout out to all my brothers from the AAA. Much love and respect to you for sure, for sure. But as far as this young man, I just recently watched tape on this young man, and I love this kid because he got long arms. From what I see, good feet. He play high at times, which is nothing abnormal for a high school lineman. Really, really good feet. Doesn't overextend a lot. Pass set is strong. You can tell he been really, really coached well because he doesn't overextend a lot. That was Caden's problem when he came to Alabama. He would overextend a lot and try to use his athletic ability. When in college, you're just not going to be able to do that a lot. It's cool in high school, but in college, those athletes you're going against on the other side of the field are just as athletic as you, if not more athletic. But I love this kid because he fits what Coach DeBoer likes to do. Smaller, quicker lineman. Doesn't necessarily need to be no 330-pound guy. They'll probably get him up to about 315. Nimble, agile. Kid that look like he could play tight end, if you ask me. Yeah. Long arms. That's what I like. Long torso, long arms. This kid is needed at Alabama. It's not many times where we need linemen, right? We want you, and I think you'll be great. But this kid is needed at Alabama with the subsidy at right tackle. I think Wilkin Form is doing well. I think Elijah Pritchett is doing well. They'll battle for that. Miles McVay. We have some very good young linemen, but this kid is a need. We need tackles at Alabama. We need them, and I do believe that the coaching staff will put all their eggs in a basket on this kid, and we'll see what happens. But as far as his talent is on the film. The film does not lie. I love what I see from this kid, and it's going to be a fight with Oklahoma. It's going to be a fight with him, but this is a kid that Alabama can preach. Need, not want.
Yeah, and need is always big. Though I can imagine, and Jason, you can attest to this, Oklahoma will be preaching need as well. Oklahoma also, before I pass it to you, Jake, has been very successful, as has Bama in the Denton region. But when you look, they have got Bowen, who's from the Denton region. They have got Jackson Arnold, who's from the Denton region.
Oh, man, too.
they have, yeah, both of them. They have been very successful in this Denton region. Jake, to you.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting battle. I do think it does favor Alabama. And my reasoning for that is Oklahoma, from a development standpoint with Bedenbaugh, I mean, it is phenomenal. You've seen what he's done. He's very impressive. And give it to Bedenbaugh. He comes from like Mike Leach. I don't think a lot of people realize he comes from Mike Leach. So there's a lot of skill set learned from like that air raid offense. But also now we look back and we look to the future and look to the present, and that's with Kalen DeBoer and his offense, right? And how does he fit and be able to demonstrate his overall abilities without having to change as much with Ty Haywood, right? And I think the big thing is that's where he fits really, really well, offensive from a scheme wise, from what they do on the offensive line. And then also I think in general, you look at what Coach Cap brings to the table. He also has time and experience, maybe does not get the same notoriety and prestige as Bedenbaugh, right? But still, with his background, everything that he's done from every school he's been at has been very phenomenal, especially with the offensive line. I have to give Coach Cap a lot of credit, right? But we also look at, from Haywood's standpoint, is this Alabama, and he says it's been his dream school since he's a kid. Okay, like he's a huge fan of Alabama. It's been where he's watched. It's been what he's wanted to do or go to. And it is hard from a recruiting aspect. And I can go back in there and consider a little bit back in my day, right, of recruiting. When you get the opportunity to go to your dream school, it's hard to say no, and that it plays a huge role in your decision. I think that's going to end up being the case. I think the relationship aspect too, though, I just think there's so much energy at Alabama. I think the kid in general feels that. You obviously see the heavy recruiting coming in with Roach, with DeBoer, with Cap, and just their ability. I mean, probably other coaches as well, with their ability to really tell this kid, like, hey man, we're making you a priority. We know you're going to do well. This is a place you need to come. This is a place you need to be. We can continue to develop you. We can show, obviously, what you can do from your athletic ability, but even make you better. And the next aspect of that, too, is he is paying attention to what Washington's offensive line did last 2 years in general, especially last year. Granted, it's a different coach, but it's still under the same scheme, you know? And so I think that's going to end up playing a big role. I do think in the end, like, that's probably a direction I would feel best. It's going to be tight, don't get me wrong, but I would put more of that percentage, and my crystal ball would be to Alabama, right? I'll put it that way. And I will say this too, from a development standpoint, and I heard this the other day on Pat McAfee's show, right, is they did a kind of a clip of like Tom Brady talking about Jordan Love behind Aaron Rodgers and how important it is for quarterbacks. And honestly, this applies to every position, how important it is truly to learn and take some time to develop. Like, there's so many kids who talk about, like, well, I'm making the consideration for playing time. That is the last thing you should consider a school or consider going anywhere to play. You should go somewhere to learn.
That's stupid.
It is, man. And there's so many kids who think about that because their end goal is the NFL, is to be that as quickly as I can get there, right? Like, there seems to be that push, but there's something to be said about what you can do. Like, you can get to the NFL. That's awesome. You can get drafted, but what if you just end up being a bust? Because that's what will happen if you do not focus and develop yourself. I think there's something you said at Alabama where you look at the time frame. Granted, Keaton Proctor, some other guys really jumped in there as a true freshman, and they were able to make moves. And if you have that skill set, good for you. You will get to play. But if you have time to develop too, that there's a huge benefit to that. Watch the guys who do it successfully in front of you. Learn from other people's knowledge. I love to say it like that. Learn from other people's experiences and knowledge. You can excel your path a lot faster. So that's kind of my take on that. I think, don't get me wrong, Oklahoma, phenomenal as far as what they can do with offensive linemen. It's not like a bad play for him, but I do think just from an overall standpoint of what you've seen, read in different articles, whether it's 247, Bama Online, Rivals, and even like, you know, Coach Smook, I saw you in here. He has some really good recruiting knowledge in there with his connections too. So make sure you check him out over at Coach Smook Network. I do think, like, you know, that the direction he is going is Alabama. And I think the official visit is really going to solidify that. Once that's in, I think it kind of puts everything in place. So
going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, the one thing I would combat with that is that Oklahoma gets an official visit after Bama. So
it's true.
You know, you only have like one other official visit, and it's Florida State. I'm not for nothing. I'm not too worried about Florida State there. Oklahoma gets to talk to him though last, as far as like getting them there and at the right time. Now, again, does it matter? I don't know. I think it does matter to some extent, and I'm not going to crystal ball anything, because I would tell you that right now, relationship wise, if you do believe it is a relationship wise, he said it's going to come down to relationships right in that last On 3 article. And he's talking about that he's built a great relationship with Coach Bedenbaugh and Venables. So to me, I do feel like it's definitely up in the air. And I think that Alabama's going to do a great job there, but I don't know that, I would have a hard time saying that I believe that it's for sure going to go one way or the other, because I just feel like these are both staffs that are doing a good job with relationship recruiting anyway. So to me, I like where Oklahoma is. I would tell you, the one thing is that Coach Bedenbaugh is more straightforward, and he's not gonna. He doesn't. I think the reason he doesn't get a lot of these guys that are 5 stars is because he doesn't blow any sunshine about, I'm going to give you a starting position as a freshman, because you got to earn it. You know, you're going to have to earn it, and if you're good enough to play, when you're good enough to play, that's great. The other thing is that I also think there's something that may have a lot to do with it. Fasusi is still firmly in Oklahoma's camp as well with it. and you already got a commitment from Ryan Foji, who is shooting up the recruiting ranks. You know, he was about 400 at the time. You should watch his film too, Coach Sean. Unreal. Another great left tackle guy. So he's shot up the ranks. He's in the top 100 of a couple of them now, and he was at like 400 when they got him to commit. So that, you know, if the playing time is a worry, or because of the fact of who they're recruiting, maybe he doesn't show up, I could see that kind of happening. But I do feel like you got to look at it as if you have an advantage with Oklahoma, not just because of being close to home. It's got to be beatable because of how many guys he has in the league right now, proving that he can coach them up and develop them. So,
well, hop down to the comments. Let us know. Do you think it's Alabama? Do you think it's Oklahoma? Who wins the battle for Ty Haywood? This is one we're going to be watching. This is one that I think all of college football will be watching closely. Obviously, Texas is a team that is still chipping away. He's talked about Kyle Flood and him are very, very close. Kyle Flood, fantastic recruiter. So this is a battle we're going to have to sit back and watch. But as of now, if I had to guess, looks to be a two-team race. Alabama, Oklahoma. Once again, hop down to the comments. Let us know what you're thinking there.